Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bhartiya, and we are here at KubeCon in Seattle, and today we have with us Kelsey Hightower from Google. Kelsey, welcome to the show. It's always great to have you on the show.
Awesome, I love being here.
As usual, you had a great demo this morning. Tell us a bit about it.
So the theme of the keynote was around, for people that are using Kubernetes, that's kind of the current technology. And you hear a lot about serverless, right? At a high level, there's this new thing coming, and depending on where you sit, this could feel like a threat to your current situation or maybe the product or skills that you're learning. But there's some value on this other side. And the theme of my keynote was around Hidden Figures, the movie. 3 women at NASA, human calculators doing this math to help man get to space. And one of the characters in the movie, or depicted in the movie, Dorothy Vaughan, she taught herself Fortran, taught the rest of the team, and then they became very instrumental in leveraging the IBM mainframe to kind of deal with some of the new challenges versus running from it and hiding. So the whole goal was to kind of teach people, hey, let's be professional engineers and look at these as just tools, and we don't need the versus comparisons.
And you said that a lot of people may look at serverless as a threat. Is it?
Well, it's predicated on managed services. So a lot of the serverless architectures that you hear about are managed compute, managed storage, managed databases. What happens is if you're the person doing the managing, and if you don't see yourself on the other side of a managed product, then it can be intimidating. So part of the keynote was to say, look, even if you had a fully managed service, there's so much value between the managed service and what your company needs. So like Dorothy Vaughan, you can take that and you're still the most valuable person in the equation. So just reminding people of that. And then if you're an engineer, just see these as tools and then go and do something amazing.
Serverless has 2 aspects. One is that you don't have to pay, and second is from developer, you don't have to worry. So when you say don't have to worry, but because when you look at developers, or you can use the word innovation, so a lot of their influence and power goes away also.
Yes, I think serverless, you could say you worry less about the server part, but there's still a lot to worry about, like security, for example. If you're using a vulnerable library, it doesn't matter what serverless product you're using, that's on you. You've chosen that library, it implements business logic. You have to care about that, but you may not have to care about the things below that. So I think a lot of it is about this idea that someone will take their expertise. We used to just open source, hey, here's an open source project. My expertise is now captured in GitHub, for example. Now we're taking those same projects and giving people fully managed services around them. So this is like DNS and email. We've seen that world already take place. We're just doing it for more things.
Does it also mean that you can actually be more innovative, more creative, because you don't have to actually worry about a lot of moving parts that you should not worry about in the first place?
Yeah, I was teaching my daughter HTML. Okay, this is like the very basis of the web stuff. And I'm teaching her HTML, and then she's teaching her friends, and I look at what they're doing, and it looks like GeoCities, right? Like they don't have any style sheets going on. And then one day she said, hey Dad, I got all this cool stuff, but how come I can't see it on my phone? And now she's ready for the next level. And I have to ask myself, do I teach her Kubernetes? Do I teach her DevOps? So I decided to take her static site and deploy it to Firebase with one command. She just Firebase deploy, and now her site is live. There's a domain by default, HTTPS by default, and then she pulls it up on her phone, and then she runs and calls her friends and say, hey, I know how you all can now share your sites with everyone else. That's the power of serverless. It's not about this tool versus that tool. It's literally being able to unlock the thing that you want to do so you can move on. So I think that is what I'm trying to make sure people understand.
And so it's actually not a threat, to be honest. It actually empowers you to be just focus on what you want to do and just don't worry about everything else.
We're building this stuff for people to use. And we have to pay attention to how they want to use these tools. So kind of my messages in the keynote was, if you're a platform builder, you need to study these other interfaces and platforms to make sure that the platform that you're building is meeting the new bar that continues to be changed and rises over time.
What got you interested in this? I mean, of course, when I look at your career graph, you have been always the next thing. But what got you interested into serverless? What bug bit you?
If someone's telling me that there's a new technology that's going to make everything I know obsolete, then I need to go check it out, right? I'm in the Kubernetes world, and maybe it's factual, maybe it's off, maybe it's just marketing. But hey, let's just take it at face value and let's go put my hands on it so I can be educate it myself. So you look at it, you poke and prod, and then you say, hey, there is some value here. I don't believe it's going to take over everything I'm doing, but there is some value, and if I can learn it, maybe I can even leverage that value. So I can see, as an engineer, adding another tool to my belt. And also at Google, we got to take care of our customers. So if there are some people that want to see serverless, I did some work around Google Cloud Functions. We now have like Go support. And then to complete the serverless philosophy, all of those things have to work together. It has to work with Google Maps, has to work with Spanner, has to even work with Apogee. So that is that serverless mindset, and that's the dream come true for a cloud provider. We're just not selling products here. So we got to make sure all that stuff works together. That's why I'm super interested. Now I have a single word to aggregate all of that work.
But when we do talk about serverless and you keep your eye on the next, are you already keeping an eye on the next thing beyond serverless, or right now you're totally focused on serverless?
Well, so to me, serverless then allows people like my daughter just to execute. So now once you start to remove the barrier on who gets to do this, then the new thing will come. Because I think the people that are operating this space, we kind of have some myopic views, right? We kind of see the world that we've created and we see the next step. But there's another group of people who aren't even here yet, that when they jump into this world, they may be laser focused on a whole different dimension we don't even see. That is interesting. So it's gonna come from somewhere else. It's gonna come from another space. That's what I'm paying attention to.
Oh, so we can expect the next keynote maybe about totally something different beyond serverless.
Or I'll be watching that keynote next to you, seeing that other person show up and say, I've taken all of that and now I'm going left field.
Right.
That's what I'm paying attention to. By the time I tell you about it, it's probably too late.
Too late, yeah.
So, hey, there's other people pushing boundaries.
Right. You also mentioned that serverless is not in every, so what are the use cases where serverless does make sense? I mean, nothing is silver bullet for everything. So what are the use cases where developers should look at serverless versus not look at it?
So one thing I try to draw out in my keynote, 2 or 3 years ago, I think people were using serverless as a very restricted set of things. Event-based functions on a managed compute platform, pay-per-use, all event-driven. Fast forward to today, serverless can mean things like BigQuery. There's a whole platform where you just drop in your data, and we've decoupled pricing from compute, pay for when you use it, not when you're not using it. And now you can start to classify serverless databases. So I think now we say, hey, this philosophy of, is there a product that's fully managed that meets my requirements? So as a developer, we've seen this with email. We've seen them with DNS. You see this with things like Salesforce. You see this with car insurance. These are things that we can say, there's a service out there that does what I need. I'm gonna leverage it and get as much value as I can. When I cannot get the value, maybe it's not priced correctly, maybe it doesn't work for my use case, you drop down one step below and you fill in the delta. So for a lot of developers these days on kind of a newer stack, Kubernetes provides a lot of value, but it isn't quite doing everything that you would see with all the other managed services. So you build a little glue in between, and that's what this whole conference is about, right? All these logos are people filling in the gaps between things that I can get off the shelf or that's fully managed but don't fit my use cases. That's where the ecosystem comes from.
Also, do they have to dip their feet into serverless to see whether it fits in their workload?
The truth is, you're probably already using it.
Yeah.
If you peel back the buzzwords,
Oh, that's true, yeah.
you're already there. When you go on your phone, there's an app store. You're not running a server for doing that. So now that we start to say, okay, all right, maybe we went a little too heavy with the marketing. Maybe we try to show people that there was something so new, so different that it caused confusion. Part of the keynote, when I opened up, Captain Johnson's one of the kind of lead engineers that was at NASA. And the opening slide was her in this room, and they're trying to figure out, how do you launch a man into space and then bring them back? So in order to do that calculus correctly, they were believing that it was a completely new problem. Number one, space, humans, and getting them back. We never done that, so that's a whole new problem. So they spent all their time looking for new math. And they looked at it hard enough and said, maybe it's a new problem, but maybe there's an old solution. And it came to them to go look at an old solution, and guess what? That was the formula to apply to the problem. That's where we are. It's not always about new thing, it's new to you probably.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's new to everyone that has come before you. So to me, this serverless thing, now that we can take the marketing off, now we can examine the philosophy. If there's something that works, leverage it, like we did with standard libraries and programming languages, When there's nothing in the standard library, go find a library written by someone else. If that one's not up to snuff, then you build it yourself. Now we're just doing that for everything else.
One thing I'm curious, actually there are two things that I'm curious about. One is that how do you prepare for your keynotes? Unless and until it's a secret sauce that you want to share.
No secret sauce. I was actually explaining it to a group of attendees after the keynote. When some news comes out, so one thing I do like about working at Google will allow me to explore, even if it's a competitor's thing, right? Because Google services iPhone, all of my apps run on my iPhone. Google kind of wants to make all of this stuff accessible to everyone regardless of platform. There's cases where Google shows up, and when there's a gap in the market, we have to show up, like Android and Chrome. These things all bring these things to the market. So that means I don't have to keep a myopic view to the world. So the fact that I keep my eyes open, when I see something interesting, the first thing I do is like, if it's interesting to me, it may be interesting to others. I pull it down, I work through it, I try to push my own limitations, I call people, learn, and when I get it all working and I stand back and say, you know what, that's amazing to me, and I'm wondering if I can put a story around it. If I can put a story on top that resonates with me, that's the keynote. This is why most of the keynotes are typically timely, right? So some content I cover here, some of the technologies were only introduced last month.
Right.
That's what I want to talk about.
And second part of the equation is that how do you simplify things to that degree?
Oh, here's the thing, when I'm building it, so for example, I was building a command line tool that would help people understand the difference between a container image and zip files that you put into like a fast platform. And I was building this tool, first I did it manual, and I'm running all these commands, like who wants to watch that? I don't want to even run that. So then I wrote an automation tool that downloads the container, rips out the binaries, and then I was like, oh, this is interesting, but it takes a while. So I decided that maybe I'll add some music to it. So I named the command Diana. When you run it, it plays Diana Ross's I'm Coming Out in parallel while it's downloading. So then it becomes even entertaining to me. So I look at it and say, wow, that feels good to build. I run it and I impress myself. I show someone else and they're like, oh my God. And then I say, you know what, now that command is ready to show people. So I've taken something that was kind of boring, get some binaries out of container, put in a zip file, and you turn it into an experience. What I've learned over the time, this is 50% education. I think there's always a big aspirational, educational is also a form of aspirations for people, but there's a bit of entertainment required. I pay my money, I'm gonna come here and I wanna see you do things that push the boundaries. So to respect the attendee, I put that polish on it.
Yeah, I totally agree. As a science fiction writer, the most important thing every time, address an audience, it's entertainment. Keynotes are not for stats, and numbers. It's about entertaining people.
Technical sessions are for, here's how it works.
You go sit in a session, talk to people, drink your coffees to stay,
They want to watch that movie, and what I'm learning is you can give them that art form. And it's also nice for me to grow,
right,
to be able to explain and articulate complex topics to the point where it looks smooth.
Right.
Because when it looks smooth, people say, you know what, I can do it.
Have you ever been a stand-up comedian also? Because
no,
the
I've managed stand-up
comedians.
comedians. But I think comedy comes when you're natural.
No, because the stage presence and make people laugh naturally.
Because I'm nervous, right? There's no speaker notes. So I don't have a plan. So now all I got is, my opening was, let's see if I can remember it. I'm the son of my mother, or my mother's son. She gave me this name, and she also introduced me to tech by sitting on the dining table, learning how to touch type so she can get a job to take care of the family and everyone else. That came from sitting in the chair saying, what am I going to say? All I got is this opening slide. It has a title on it, and it's based on hidden figures. And you're sitting in the chair, you don't have any speaker notes, because speaker notes give you a form of naive confidence. Oh, these notes are perfect. I'll just do those notes, and as long as I read them correctly, I'm good, right? But when you don't have the notes, now you gotta look at the crowd. You gotta fill out and say, all right, how did the last keynote do? What's the vibe? So you sit in the chair and you say, I got it. Something that actually resonates with me. And then you get on stage and you look at people. And you say, you know what? I'm just gonna speak from my heart. And then when they lean in, they give you permission to be funny, to be courageous, to try something a little different. So the demos aren't 100% scripted. The demos are like, I think of them like a musical instrument in ways, right? They're like a piano. I can play any song I want. I know what the pieces are, I know what the keys do, and based on the response of the people, we may speed it up a little bit. We may switch to a new song mid-flight. That's the value of doing that live.
I feel some personal opinion that whenever there's, you have the script running on the teleprompter, I think you're not connected to the audience at all. You're actually disconnected with the audience.
I mean, there's a time and place for that.
You have to do that
thing
sometimes?
Because there's sometimes when you're introducing brand new information, you want to make sure you get the words right. So it's a different art form. But there's also that freestyle, like jazz versus a CD.
Form, that is the key word.
There's different art forms, right? So like in jazz, I didn't respect jazz until someone told me, Kelsey, the reason why it sounds that way is because they're playing off of each other. This is different than buying a CD where it's been mixed and mastered to perfection, it's been quantized. That's not how humans work. So when you go see live jazz, you'll see your favorite musician do something that you've never heard on the thing you bought from them. So to me, I kind of treat it like jazz. Go out there and riff a little.
Right. You mentioned your daughter a couple of times, in this interview. So can you expect that at some point in some keynote, she will be accompanying you, or maybe she will be doing a keynote and you'll be sitting in the audience?
I'm pretty sure she's going to do something more amazing than I can imagine. But I've always offered that to her. So I teach her the skills I know, and she explores the worlds from her vantage point. And I am paving away from her, I think, giving her confidence. So she's watched some of my keynotes live. She's also been in attendance when she was much younger to one of the talks I was given. But I think for her, it's permission to say, oh, my dad can do that, and he ain't as cool as I am, so I can do that. And if that's her level of confidence, that's all she needs, and whatever she does from there is gonna be great. But I always tell her, there's a big power in being able to communicate. My wife does it well as well. She's in education. She's worked at the city level. She's been a director of these things. And I watch her, and I presented with her before. I did one of the
things. Were you nervous when you presented with her?
No, it felt good with her.
Yeah.
We were talking to teachers.
Okay.
And I was teaching them how to leverage technology.
Okay.
And she was basically rolling out a program for the district, and she's like, "Well, could you come to give them a little feedback?" And I watched her do her thing, and she's smooth. She's real smooth. And I'm like, okay, I gotta step up my game, okay? So I think there's a lot of power, and I want to make sure my daughter understands that.
So do you practice at home, both mom and dad, so that kids can see that or no?
So I don't practice them, but I do spend a lot of time on the individual component. So I'm building the piano leading up to the event. I want to tune the piano to make sure that when I hit that note, it comes out correctly. That's it. So as long as the piano's right, as long as the atmosphere is correct, then I'm ready to show up. The practice comes from talking to customers. You look at them and say, hey, what kind of problems are you solving? Experimenting on my own. That's the rehearsal.
Right.
When you show up, you're just taking those bits and pieces that are relevant and you're displaying them. That's what I do now. So it's more about seeing myself on the stage. And this is why you go to that keynote or you go to rehearsal and you look at the stage and you look at how big it is. So I should walk around here. Look at the connection. Imagine the people. Got it. So you start rehearsing. What will I look like? Should I be vulnerable? What does the demo feel like? Should someone get inspired? And if they did get inspired, what would they leave and go do next? Now I'm ready.
Do you ever watch your demos after that? I have seen a lot of film actors, they say, no, I've done the film, I don't want to watch it again. Do you?
I don't watch a lot of them, but I did watch my GCP Next one. Mainly because there were like 25,000 people at this conference. When you're doing conferences for like third party in the community, it's okay, have fun.
Right.
But when you're representing your company
That's interesting.
on their main stage, there's a lot that goes into that. So you got your colleagues in the front row, and you got to put on your A game because you're representing yourself, you're representing their work all together. So I watched that one again, and I liked it. And there's been a few that, I'll look on YouTube and it's like, wow, people have 100,000 views. Let me check this one out. And I'll watch it and say, wow, that guy is all right.
That's true. So are we getting your show on Netflix anytime soon, Kelsey's Keynotes?
I'll tell you, I'm a super humble person.
Oh, yeah.
So I always look at this in context of, I am super lucky. I'm lucky people let me be myself. There was a time when I didn't think you were allowed to be yourself. I thought you had to do what the professors do. I thought you had to have the slides look like everyone else's slides. So maybe 5 years ago, people gave me permission just to do it my way, my style. And then they said, hey, we actually like it. And whenever you can kind of find your own natural voice and then people like it, it gets a lot easier. But then I know who I am. I know I'm just a regular guy. I've been where everyone else has, So you start to say, well, this is just a token of their appreciation. So when people come up to me and say, hey, Kelsey, I got my first job thanks to Kubernetes the hard way. I went through that. I pinged you on Twitter and you said, call me, and I gave them the best advice I could at the time. And then they show up and say, hey, my life is different now. That's just appreciation. What they give, they can take away.
No, I remember last time when we were walking, by the time we reached the room, there were like 5 people who stopped you, and I saw the conversation. So
these are just humans doing what humans do. They're not fans. They're not groupies. There's none of that. That is not the appropriate word for humans. These are people who genuinely appreciate what you do, and they do the most human thing you can do, which is show your appreciation for someone else.
Right.
I'm lucky.
And you show your appreciation by just spending your time with them, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever.
And also learn from them. They don't get it. I'm like listening too and trying to up my game.
Right.
Right. So it's one of those things that I love, that part where we can close the computers and just be human to human. So I appreciate what they give to me.
People don't understand that actually you learn when you listen. You don't learn by talking. So
that's right.
A lot of people try to just say what they know, but they don't like to listen what they. These are anything else you would like to talk about today?
I mean, those are the main things. This is a community event. I think KubeCon and CNCF really represents this world where a lot of Google's ideas and white papers that I used to read have turned into open source projects. Right. And now if you look around, they've turned into ecosystems.
So what was your when you saw, I think this is the biggest crowd so far. Now it's a big challenge to keep it up too. So what was your observation when you walk around and see the people?
It's big. It also reminds me that even though Kubernetes has been around for 4 or 5 years, it's day one for half of the attendees. So we got to make sure that we understand that it's day one for them and not lose focus on what it means to bring even advanced users and new users to the platform. How can we message it better? How do we make it work better? And just be very transparent with them, because not everyone's coming from the same place. And then how do we stay authentic?
But the thing is, not everybody can afford to come here because Kubernetes is a global phenomenon. So what other work the community is doing to ensure that people within their local communities, remember in early Linux days, we used to go to Lux. So what are you doing to...
I do a lot of the meetups. Google just does outreaches in general. I'm always surprised on the number of outreaches. For example, we have these things where Googlers can donate, hundreds of dollars every year to the place of your choice. And I think the world knows it, because around this time, you start to see people tweet, hey, if you're confused on what to do with your nonprofit dollars, send them this way. This is part of the Googlers' DNA by default. We have Googlers everywhere, right? Many countries Googlers represent. So a lot of us do meetups. Just go straight to the local meetup and really just empowering other people. There are people here from Costa Rica. There's people from all over the globe. And for them, they're in these sessions, listening deeply, taking notes, sharing their experiences. And the most eye-opening thing is when they tell people their story, and people say, wow, you're a little bit further ahead than I am. And it demystifies this whole US is the best at everything. And then they go back and now they have that confidence to now execute in their local market. So this is where we all kind of come, train the trainer, share our stories, and then we go back to our homes and we educate people around us.
Last time we touched upon some of your private life, I just want to continue just a little bit more. We stopped where you did a stand-up, you work with a stand-up group. What was that story about?
Oh, managing comedians?
Yeah.
That's a long, involved process, but...
How did it help you in, where you are today? In
just business. Because for me, I was a manager for comedians, so they had a set of talents, and you got to make sure that they get compensated correctly for their set of talents. And with comedy, figuring out what your material needs to be, because that material becomes your identity. So that becomes your product. And you have to hone that particular skills because that's all you got. So what you start to understand is lots of people do comedy. Lots of people are funny. So how do you paint a brand for yourself? How do you pay attention to what? Because as a comedian, you're allowed to appreciate other comedians. So you watch it, you appreciate what they do. And also comedians have a byproduct that they do. There are some people who need a laugh. So part of your job is to give people something to laugh about. So what do I take from that? In the tech world, when I'm presenting these complex topics, I got to give them something, not just to laugh at, but to inspire to. Wait a minute, he just did it in front of me. So you mean I can just go do it to myself? Yeah, and this is why I put the resulting materials on GitHub. So if some people will tell me, hey, Kelsey, I took some of your keynotes and I've done it at my company, part of our engineering summit. And I don't know, I got a promotion or a bonus for that. It's like, great, monetize it, make the best of it. So that's what it's about, sharing ideas, share a laugh, and see people do better.
So when I look at you, do I look at somebody who's more a technical person or more of a marketing person? Because you are a mix of both.
I'm an engineer that understands that the things we build are for people. So as an engineer is why I write all my own code. This is why I'm okay learning and knowing that it's always going to change, and respect how hard engineering is, right? There's a discipline to this. Nothing's fast, okay? It's hard. So I respect that, so I have empathy. But then when I show you, I can't get into the weeds. That's not, engineering includes documentation, it includes testing, it includes telling people what it is, telling people why it matters. So to me, I'm a complete engineer.
Awesome. And once again, thanks for, unless there's something else you want to talk about, thanks for, stopping by here. And of course, we'll see you not this year, but next year.
Awesome.
Thank
you.
you.